Yeah. So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, I am on my knees, I'm on survival, I don't know how I'm going to carry on, I just think I'm going to leave education for good. What might you say to them?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, I've got that a lot in the last few years of people going, I'm done with it, I'm ready to walk away, and I'm exploring other opportunities, to the point where during that COVID lockdown period, I think people were going to be delivery drivers for Amazon and working in supermarkets because they just didn't want the stress and the additional hours and workload. And that's not because they didn't want to work hard. I think that's because it was just completely underappreciated that those things were happening. I think you'll find that most people want to do that and are quite invested in doing that, as long as it is everybody doing it together and that they're appreciated for what they do. And it's not all about money. So I think for me is saying, take control of your own destiny. Don't feel like you're on a single career trajectory, that because you've been in one place for so long, or you feel like it's the norm and the status quo that you have to follow that trajectory, that you can't try something else. And there is plenty out there. I mean, just because it feels like there is a challenge in education in general at the moment, and everything that's reported is suddenly the worst thing in the world because reporting has to be quick and it has to be first and it has to be poignant and mind bending. For
Mm.
every challenge, there are also some wonderful places out there. There's some wonderful opportunities. And I think for me, is saying that connect yourself with good people and put yourself in those positive spaces that are having those optimistic conversations and that are talking about some of their own stories and their own journeys of going, well, this is where I was and this is what I did. And I took a leap of faith, or I decided to do something different. And actually, this is what I got out of it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about recruitment. That's just positioning yourself with the right people and the right conversations, that you're feeling that it isn't the end of the world, because it isn't. Generally, everything will work itself out no matter how bad it feels. And you don't have to leave education. I am a staunch believer that education is the best thing to be in. You are ultimately responsible for the futures of, the next great explorer or the next great scientist or the next head teacher, trust leader, uh, prime minister, whatever that might be. To hold that in your hands is unbelievable. I've got 3 kids who are going through their school journeys at the moment, and they're in the most amazing school with brilliant teachers and leaders who are compassionate and invested and just really nice people who want the best. And I just look at it and think, I kind of wish I would have done that when I was younger. I never really explored it, but I wished I would have got into it, because I don't feel that there's much better than giving someone some information or some confidence or teachings that they go on to put into something really positive, no matter how large or small. But these young people only have the what they learn to grow up with. And outside of family and close friends, you are their number one guide. And I don't think there's anything quite as exciting as that.
No,
So don't.
I love I love you reminding us why we do what we do, because it's so important. We forget that sometimes. We get so immersed in the day-to-day chaos. But I guess a question I have is that what comes to my mind when or before I burnt out, actually, I was in a job I absolutely loved, passionate about it. And yes, I was a workaholic. I had bad habits, bad mindset, and I was perhaps trying to prove myself. I never felt good enough, which was silly because I was good at what I did. But I've had to sort of, yeah, teach myself and learn new habits with all of that. But when I left my school, because I got so ill with the burnout, because I kept going, my confidence was shot. And when I speak to others who are really struggling, and leaders who are on survival, teachers as well, where they just are so overwhelmed to a point where I ask them what the symptoms are when I speak at conferences sometimes. And the symptoms of the stress they're seeing, it's disassociation, it's not eating, it's overeating, it's not sleeping, it's, physical signs like migraine, and
Yeah.
I had loss of use of my hands at times and things like that. But it impacts your self-image, your confidence, your self-belief. What would you have you got experience of supporting someone in that situation, which is not a healthy situation to be in, to change the narrative somehow and find a role that suits them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is, as sort of alluded to in the previous answer, is know that it's not the end, and know that that's not the norm, and find someone through your network of connections anywhere. I mean, you'd be surprised when you start looking at that, how big your network is, and how wonderful some of those people are. And no matter how close your relationship, you could be introduced to somebody who has gone through exactly the same thing and has come out in a positive and optimistic light. They may have gone through a couple of things before, even to suggest that these are the things that happen, and here's some things to avoid that get you there, but ultimately it isn't the end, and you can change it. Speaking from a personal and professional perspective, I suppose, and a lot of the work that I do goes beyond recruitment. We do a lot of work with leaders and educators who are clearly disillusioned with things, or lacking confidence, or just seeking change. But they might have been somewhere for so long that they're not used to what that looks like. And it's really scary. It's really daunting, the prospect of making change, especially when you've been comfortable, I suppose, for some time. So we do a lot of the personal side of things as well. I get to know the people that I work with, and regardless of whether that goes on to be a placement for me, it's more than that. It's making sure that they've got the confidence in themselves and refinding the reason they went into what they do, and what they want to do next, and where they see themselves thriving, because you can find it.